Hello and welcome back to another episode of Talk Healing to Me. I'm your host, Karen Dwyer, and if you're new here, I'm so glad you've joined us. This is the space where we keep it real, explore all of the healing in all its messy, beautiful forms, and talk about the hard things with heart and some hope as well. So today's episode is a little different. It is a solo one, and I'm going to walk you through some of the most powerful moments from my recent interview with the amazing Kerrie Lee Brown. So she's a media powerhouse, a heart health advocate, and an all-round inspiring human who reminded us at the deep cost of people-pleasing and the radical importance of putting ourselves on our own priority list. I have to tell you, I was a little bit shook having the conversation because Kerrie talks about her experience, and I bet most people listening to it and go, oh, I do that. Oh, I do that. So I want you to really listen out for this, and maybe you're going to come away with this with some inspired guidance to do things possibly a little bit different. It's not to add anything more onto your plate. It's actually to do the polar opposite. So whether you're out walking, lying in bed, doing the dishes or commuting, you're going to want to sit with us for this one. Let's dive in.
This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult your doctor. Views shared are personal and not a substitute for professional guidance.
So the first part, it's the wake-up call that we never want but sometimes need. So Kerrie had a heart attack at 39, not overweight, not, no known family history. She was a fit, career-driven mom, but the warning signs, they were there. Sharp shoulder pain, exhaustion, and weird arm sensations. And what did she do the next day? She went to work. Now, I don't know about you, but that one hit me. And I'm sure anyone listening to this can resonate. There's a lot of times, and I hear myself do it as well, so this isn't pointing the fingers at anyone, you find yourself giving advice to somebody else. And then if you're in need, somebody might give you advice and you're like, oh, no, I don't need to do that. Oh, I'm fine. And you kind of soldier on and keep going anyway. Well, this one kind of gave me a little bit of a different kind of real life takeaway, because I suppose how often do we ignore our bodies because our schedule says we can't stop or we need to look after something or someone else. The body whispers until it screams. What would it look like if we actually listened the first time? The second part that I took a note of was when knowledge isn't enough. So Kerrie was the former editor of a women's fitness magazine. She knew wellness, but she still burnt out. And it reminded me that sometimes knowing something intellectually doesn't mean we actually embody it. We get a lot of triage calls, and our nurse does as well, when people come to us and are looking for some support. If they have MS, sometimes it might be different things like Parkinson's or muscular dystrophy, lots of other chronic illness. But one of the things that we've heard so many times is, oh, I've read that book and I've read that book and I've read that book. Well, I've read books about swimming, but I can't swim. And if you threw me in a swimming pool, I'm not going to be able to swim, because it's the action that we need to be taking, and it's the embodying or the actual doing the reps of it. It's the being on the court versus being in the stands. But yeah, that knowing it really is, one of the examples that Kerrie and I spoke about afterwards was, it's like when we know how to eat well or to meditate, but the overwhelm of life keeps us from applying it. And that's why community and the implementation and the reminders and really the habits matter. But even listening to things like this podcast is really good, because you hear people talking about it in real time, like real life examples, not a scientist giving you a hypothesis. The next part was people pleasing is a health hazard. Oh, I didn't want to hear this one. One of the most relatable moments was when Kerrie spoke about people pleasing as her default mode at work, at home, socially, and how she didn't realize how much of herself she was giving away until her body said enough. So maybe a question to ask ourselves is, where are you saying yes to keep the peace but sacrificing your own wellness? One of the questions that I invite my clients to use with themselves or to ask themselves is, if I'm saying yes to this, what am I saying no to? So if somebody asks you to do something, like the default answer is, oh my God, of course. And it's like you make it happen and at your own detriment. But then the background, it's like, oh God, I really needed to do something else. Or, I'm not prioritizing what the needs are. So if I'm saying yes to you, What am I saying no to myself for? It's a difficult question to face, but a useful one. The next part was the invisible labor of women. Kerrie said something that made me tear up. She remembered quite a few memories where she hadn't put herself first, especially around parenting. And actually, that the memory that really came back to me about my mom, and my mom, making dinner, and you'd see her in the kitchen and putting everybody else's plate down. And then she'd have a tiny little plate and you'd say, Mom, why aren't you eating? Oh, sure, I'm not that hungry. And I knew, you knew deep down, but it's then how do you verbalize that as a 8, 9, 10 year old? And I bet so many women do that. And there is a different emotional load for women. We're made up differently. There is a health gap, but there's an endocrine and hormone gap. But I really think it's such a metaphor for us to live by, that if we're always serving everyone else's needs first and ending up then with the scraps, I'd love to know if that sounds familiar. What are the scraps that you're accepting in your own life? Where are you putting yourself at the bottom of that priority list? The next part, the fifth point that I had, and there's 10 altogether, was redefining success. So for Kerrie, she said success used to mean status or title or headlines. And now for Kerrie, it means doing what's aligned and saying no and sleeping and writing or walking or being with her boys. And certainly for myself, oh my goodness, I remember when I had to give up my job. And at first I thought, oh, it's going to be great. I'm going to go for lunches with my friends and have a different and a really nice lifestyle. And actually, I crumbled because I felt like I had given up my identity. I felt like not being busy anymore meant I didn't have value, or it meant I wasn't good enough. And I hate admitting that because it wasn't true. But when I think back to my younger self and the inner turmoil, that was really hard. And then, of course, on the outside, you put on that smile and that facade of everything's fine, and your voice goes a little bit higher. So I'd love to hear, how do you define success today? Not 5 years ago, not what your parents wanted, not what, whoever else it might be in your life thinks you should have, but now, what does success look like for you today? One of the things we're starting to get a lot more emails, which is brilliant. Make sure you write us in. I'd love to hear the answers to these. Podcast at talkhealingtome.com. We would love to hear those answers and we'll give you a shout out. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. The sixth point was sharing our stories is healing, and exactly what I was just pointing to. Kerrie created redlilylife.com, which is a beautiful storytelling platform where women share their real life experiences to heal themselves and help others. And she said that every story must end with a positive takeaway, which I adore. So could you write your story just for you, or maybe for someone else to read? What have you been through that somebody else might need to hear? We'd love to hear it too. And you can find Red Lily Life in the podcast show notes as well. The seventh point was healing is holistic. So Kerrie's recovery wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, and social. And it's such an important part in the work that we do with our clients as well. A lot of times, our people in the past have been told to eat this and move like this, and then it's off you go and hope for the best. And I call that the spray and pray method. So it's like following a cookie cutter, do this, don't do this, and let's cross our fingers and hope for the best. But unless you're actually going deeper with yourself and finding out what those triggers are, finding out what the patterns are that built up over a longer time, because these things don't just show up. The heart attack at 39 probably started at age 25. Those, presets that we build for ourselves really become everyday life, and they build up over time. So it's really important. Well, I'll speak about in our work. It's really important for us to get to know the entire human mindset, movement, nutrition, sleep, stress, hormones, all of that stuff. I loved what Kerrie said that she started doing was the self-check-ins every morning and evening, and she learned to give herself grace. And I think that's something we all need more of. Tomorrow morning, take 60 seconds before you start the day and ask, what do I need today? What is it that I need today? Not everyone else. What do I need to do for everyone else? What do I need today?
This episode of Talk Healing to Me is sponsored by Clean Boss, created by Joy Mangano, the legendary inventor behind the Miracle Mop and a pioneer in clean innovation. Clean Boss is a botanical disinfectant that kills 99.9% of viruses, germs, and bacteria. It's safe for food surfaces, soft surfaces, and baby high chairs with no toxic ingredients and no rinse required. It's also a degreaser, odour eliminator, and all-purpose cleaner that works as hard as the chemical-heavy stuff without the health risks. Check it out at getcleanboss.com/Karen for a clean, better, and living safer life.
The 8th point was boundaries are a form of self-respect. I struggle with this a little bit, I have to tell you. Kerrie says no unapologetically. She gave the example of stepping back from draining friendships, not with drama, but with clarity, and that's powerful. And I don't know about you, you probably have friends that ask you for a lot of stuff very often. And I love helping people out. I love helping friends out. And it's not saying it in a martyr way, oh, I'm very good and I help people out a lot. But you'll find that some friends will ask for a lot of things and may not give back in return. And that's okay. That is okay, occasionally. That's fine. But when it becomes years and years of asking, and expecting, and that kind of entitlement of, well, you're going to do what I ask you because I have a need, that's not very healthy. So I invite you to have a look at who energizes you and who drains you. And another way to say this, I talk about this with my clients, is, who are the drains and radiators in your life? Who heats you up? And then who sucks the life out of you? What boundaries would feel good to create? One of the sentences that I use or I offer to my clients is, when somebody asks you to do something, and if you don't want to, there's a couple of different ways. There's a softer way when your immediate reaction is to say, yeah, sure, of course, no problem. Say, I want to say yes, but let me just check out what I have on at the moment and then I'll come back to you. So it gives you a little bit of space between it. If it's like a definite no and you're ready to rock, it would be like, that doesn't work for me. Thanks for asking. There's no drama. There's no make wrong. There's no, oh, I'm sorry, but I have to do this. It's like, no, making excuses. You're like retaining your power and you're setting that boundary. So I'd love to hear if you do that and how it works out and how do you feel. The first few times are going to be uncomfortable, let me tell you. But it really makes a difference over time. Can you imagine if you did that for the rest of your life and what difference that would make to you, your health, your stress levels, your energy, your free time that's available to yourself, rather than continuing on a pattern now of saying yes to everything? I still struggle with it sometimes because your default is to say yes. But a lot of the time there is an integrity in you doing that. The 9th point that I made was you don't have to earn rest. And this is something called permission to pause that I speak about within our work. This was a subtle theme throughout. So Kerrie doesn't just wait until she's sick anymore to rest. She builds it up in her week. So rest is productive. It really is. Full stop. If you need a nap, take one. If you need a quiet night, say no to that invite. Really important. And the 10th and final one was lead with your heart. So Kerrie said after divorce and decades in media, something that stayed with me that she said was, I now lead with my heart, not always with my head. And we get so caught up in logic and productivity and, getting tasks done. But your heart knows, your gut knows. So I wonder what it would mean for you to lead with your heart this week. I'd love to hear that. Before we go, some shout outs to our brilliant clients. And we also have some brilliant emails that we got. So thank you, really. Thank you for taking the time to share with us what you're dealing with, some questions for our experts, and also just to celebrate you. It really, really makes a difference hearing from all of the different places you're listening to over the world. I'm going to start with clients first, and I'm going to do a letter instead of their full name, okay? Some people prefer to be anonymous, which I completely respect. So S said, feeling less sore today. This was after our movement call on Tuesday, just gone. So these are the wins from our movement call. Jay said, able to use left hand when washing hair. Jay had only just joined the program probably about 3 weeks ago at this point and had issues with her shoulder, or arm and grip. So one of the things she said was, it just started. I was just able to do it, which our clients get used to having those transformations show up more and more often after they start. A said it was easier to sit up and get out of bed each morning with less aches. Another S, a different one, said, walked around Burton Constable yesterday with no pain or numbness and had energy left in my tank when we got home. So happy. Oh, so cool. M said, did the MS walk on Sunday with her family and friends and raised $2,200 for MS. Really, really great job, Marie. A said, playing with grandchildren on the floor and being able to get up unaided. I mean, what a win. Absolutely brilliant. P said, yesterday I succeeded in doing the leg up routine, which you had us do last week. I tried on and off during the week with marginal success. Then yesterday I managed to do it and balance both sides effectively. This is brilliant. So let me give you a little bit more thought into that. So we have personalized movement plans depending on people's needs, mobility, energy, dexterity, all of those things. And I will move people on about 1% more each week. And anytime we start something new, like anything, it's a little bit harder to do in the beginning. And it's meant to be like that because we want to challenge the hemispheres of the brain. We want to make sure that left and side is talking to each other cohesively, but also building up that muscle. So when someone gets to that little bit of a plateau or is able to do it really easily, we'll add in something else just to challenge it that little bit more. Not that it's hard, not that it's impossible, so that our clients get to build and trust their confidence from the inside out, that they get to see, oh, that was difficult a couple of weeks ago. Now I'm able to do it. So we love hearing that. B said her win was stretching her hamstrings faithfully each day, which was absolutely amazing. And then H said she is back doing her regular exercise with no issues whatsoever. Now we have another email from Sarah, who's in California, and said she's been listening to the podcast and with her kids as well. And it's making such a difference for opening up conversations that she would have been afraid to have. This is why we do this podcast. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for letting your daughters hear that too, because sometimes it's hearing something that you may not have verbalized before. It might be a concern, it might be a win, it might be an acknowledgement to yourself, or it might just spark a conversation that leads to a change within your life. So, really great. And thank you for sharing that with us. Please do email us with your wins, with your celebrations, your thoughts, and any questions you might have around your health. It doesn't have to be MS related, it can be anything. And we will do our best to get either one of our experts or myself to answer it. So, that's it for today's solo episode of Talk Healing to Me. I hope this recap sparked something for you. A reminder, a question, a nudge. Kerrie's story is a powerful one, and it's one that reminds us that healing is an ongoing daily commitment. If you've got a question you'd like answered on the show, or you want to share with us your story, again, email us. We love hearing from you. You can find the links and the details in the show notes. And of course, if you found value in this episode, do the things like, share, subscribe, and most importantly, talk healing to yourself this week with grace, compassion, courage. Until next time, I'm Karen Dwyer, and thank you. Stay well.
Thank you to our sponsors of this episode. You can visit getcleanboss.com/Karen. And also a thank you to our video and podcast producer and editor, Aoife McNamara at Imagine Media. Thank you.